We are recording. Welcome to Charge Chat for Tuesday, October 16th, 2018. I'll share my screen so we can see the agenda. So here is the agenda. We have 3 items on it. I had the first item, which was we've had an issue with the chart version in match labels. It looks like there's also a problem in the volume claims. Is anybody familiar with this?
I am.
And can you fill us in a little bit on what's going on?
So basically, that's still the same problem about impossibility of upgrades. If a volume claim template contains some mutable field, it's basically impossible to upgrade it. Yeah, because it's immutable. It's always the same thing. So I think I've listed the impacted charts just below. Yes. So there are still 2 impacted charts, CouchDB and Patronny. Well, I've checked last week. Maybe it has been fixed since. I've tried to ping the owners of CouchDB of Patronny without luck. So maybe they're here. Are you here, dear maintainers?
Doesn't sound like they're on, but if somebody creates a pull request against this, then we could go through and merge it anyway and get this rolling and contact them. So that's probably the best path here. I'm also wondering whether these kinds of checks we can fit into chart testing somewhere to make sure we don't have this.
Yeah, I think about that. I think we have to check the upgrades. It's possible to install from the previous version. So ideally, it would be nice to install from the previous version and then try and upgrade. Only if it's not a new major version. If it's a new major version, it's breaking anyway, so it don't need to test. But if it's a minor or patch change version, well, I think we should test. Maybe it's not that simple, but ideally we should test.
Okay. Yeah, let's see if we can get pull requests in for these 2. And the reason that I'd like it on chart testing is as we go distributed, more folks can benefit from this with automation and check it. Okay. Well, that's all with that one. The volume claims was news to me. I knew about the match labels, but I didn't know about that. But it makes sense. It actually makes sense. I just hadn't thought about it before.
Maybe we can follow with the changes of the official way of writing everything. I think I've created some pull requests about this to update the how to say, just let me find it. Where is my screen? You stole my screen. Yeah, the PR to update the guidelines that is stuck for maybe 3 weeks or a month. Let me paste it. This one.
Yeah, please paste it. Okay, I'll go take a look at that one today.
So I don't know if I have the correct solution, but at least, well, maybe it would be nice to follow on this one to move on, to try to finish this.
All right, I'll review that after the call today.
Nice.
Okay, I can do that. All right. I don't know if there's anything else on this one. Then there was the topic of non-namespaced resources in CI. Who added that? Somebody want to talk about it?
Yeah, I just added that.
Perfect.
I had this issue, or someone from the Prometheus operator chart recently had this issue and pinged me like twice because the CI job failed because the custom resource was already there. So now the question is, I mean, this is non-namespace resources, and the question is how we in general what we can do about this, how we want to handle this. I mean, I told him the chart should make sure to clean up, but yeah, any ideas? Because normally we install charts in newly created namespaces, but this obviously is not the case for non-namespaced resources.
Yeah, and it becomes a problem when you have two things that end up running in parallel. So the first chart installs it and the second one goes. I don't have a good answer for it, quite frankly. The way I think Kubernetes is looking at handling some of this is they're working on a project to basically be able to stand up a cluster really simply and easily. So rather than continually using the same one to stand up a cluster, there's a new project. I'm actually not sure. I'm going to go see if I can find it real quick here. Too many things. It's called Kind, and we probably need to adopt something like that in our CI process because it's Kubernetes and Docker. So you install Docker, and then you install a Kubernetes cluster into it, and then you run something.
Cool.
Kubernetes, Minikube, they found for the testing infrastructure wasn't working all that well. And so folks went off and created Kind in order to be able to stand up a cluster and then run some tests against it for certain kinds of testing. So my guess is, unless somebody else has a better idea, we'd probably have to investigate something like this.
Yeah. The question is if this works for like everything. If you need like, I don't know, cloud provider specific things, that would probably not work, right?
Yeah, it probably wouldn't. I have no idea how this works now. And it might even let us get into the whole idea of if you specified the cloud provider, we could have integrations with different cloud providers. So it could work there. Or if you did more than one cloud provider, we could actually spin up different tests in different cloud providers and test it and bring that in. But if we're moving away from all of the shared repo, then maybe that's something we just punt on. I don't know. If somebody wants to chase after this kind of thing, totally up for it. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. But I won't have the time in the near future to do it myself. But if somebody wants to, I like the idea of being able to get around some of these problems. I don't know, but it is a problem. In fact, I just checked, and we have several old charts that did not clean up properly after they were run, even going back to August.
There's actually, well, it's not. That's. Let me quickly I was just gonna mention this. Let me quickly share my screen and I'll show you. I just had
Sure. Let me stop sharing. All right, it's yours.
Okay, so this is all the namespaces. Can you see it on our cluster?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes.
Yep.
This is a lot, and all these namespaces, like they have existed for ages. They have not been created by our chart CI. They would have like a pre-submit prefix and like a pull request number, like these, I think, or something like this. At least this is like, I don't know, and there's always lots of concourse things there, and I don't know, is somebody testing something there from someone from the team? I don't know. I would just probably remove all this. This is okay for everyone here.
I think it's okay because there aren't any concourse charts at the moment that are running through the system. These are all. Well, the question is, why is concourse? What is it doing that it's not?
Well, hey, I'm looking at the concourse chart, and it looks like it creates a namespace.
Ah, okay.
And it doesn't clean it up afterwards, does it?
That's my wild guess. I just looked I just looked at it as a hunch when you said that.
Okay, yeah, that could be the reason. Okay.
So when it deletes concourse, why doesn't it clean up its namespace? Or is that just because I haven't thought about that? Is there a way to do that via the chart?
I mean, in general, the chart Helm should clean up all managed resources. I mean, maybe it's not, it's created by a hook or something. That would be kind of strange.
I don't think so. It looks like it's created from the template. And I, there are some. This is something that I don't know that probably one of you will know, but their charts don't always clean up all of their resources. There seems to be some sort of a policy somewhere that defines which resources stay around. I've never tried to do this with a namespace.
Yeah.
It appears the namespaces aren't cleaned up.
That's interesting.
I wonder if there's a Helm issue about this already.
Also, sorry it took me this long to connect. I don't know what my issue was. I had to restart everything.
Okay, so there's a namespace resource in the chart and it has resource policy keep.
Okay.
So that's
So that's why CI is doing this. Okay. We got it right there.
I see the policy there. Okay, I missed that at first. Thanks.
okay, so yeah, I guess we can't do much about that.
I wonder why. Maybe that should be parameterized.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it should be parameterized, and then we have a separate CI job that changes it and removes the keep function. So that way in our CI system, it cleans up.
Hmm. Maybe we could just search for resources that have the same labels wherever they are. And remove them.
I wondered about that. Do we handle? Are there any charts that create PVCs out of the box? Because a lot of those have a keep policy. And do we handle that separately somehow in our testing? Or do we just have a bunch of those lingering?
No, there's no one.
Okay.
There's only 2 PVCs on the cluster at the moment across all namespaces, so that's not an issue. They've just been created.
Okay. Yeah.
So PVCs are actually deleted, at least for deployments, not so for stateful sets, I think. But actually, if you do a Helm delete, then everything should go away. Yeah.
Oh, Reinhard, all I meant was when I was doing a quick search for resource policy in the charts repo, there's a few of them that have a keep.
Okay.
But it looks like most of them have it parameterized. The Bitcoin one does not seem to. I'd be curious as to why we wouldn't have that lingering. Anyway, I don't want to get off track. It just, because this was kept, it just reminded me of that thing I had in the back of my mind.
So for now, do we just want to go through and say delete all the concourse ones? How should we proceed on this one?
Yeah, I would just delete all of them.
Is that something you want to do or in script up, or should somebody else run off and do that?
I would quickly do it manually, and then let's see.
Okay.
There's either a whole bunch of CRDs on the cluster, which I don't know what if we need all of them or what this is all about. It's probably the same issue we had with Prometheus operator.
Oh, yeah. Why aren't more of these? I would have expected these to be cleaned up, and maybe it's any of these are older. And there aren't things going through. Okay. They should be deleted. I guess a bunch of these are back from June and July.
May have to check if there is anything we need, but probably not, I guess.
Not for the operation of this cluster. None of these impact that because we're just running a Jenkins. Is that what we're doing? Yeah. Or no, I'm sorry, moved off Jenkins. We're actually not doing that anymore. Protestant. Okay. None of this is, yeah.
So I can safely delete them.
You can safely delete them.
Okay.
All right. There's also several releases of things I'm going to go through and delete, like Chaos Cube and things like that. I'll delete right now too.
Okay.
So what I see is I see Chaos Cube from August, Drupal from September, Elasticsearch from September. Got Drupal, get Elasticsearch. Do a little of this on the fly here. Then there's Spark History. I'm not even familiar with. There's ones from October, and it all seems to be one that failed. Those are the ones of Spark that are left around, even Drupal. It seems that when it's failing, sometimes it's leaving it around. I'm not sure how it's failing. I see some of this stuff you're getting because it's trying to delete and it says the namespace isn't there anymore or it's being deleted, which means whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm deleting CRDs now, but some of them are hanging at the moment. So
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we can probably move on to the next thing as we're deleting these things in the background. The next one was the status of the chart testing rewrite and go. Reinhard,
Yeah,
I think this is you.
Just thought I'd give you a quick status. I think it was in the last charts meeting when we had this discussion about the robot framework. I thought about this again, and I think it's just better in our case to keep going with our own tooling because the robot framework is just a massive framework, and we want something that's easy to use out of the box, and we don't want to impose such a framework on our users, I guess. So it makes sense, and it's really a very specific use case to continue with this. And I'm pretty far now. It's working. Just a few things missing. So if any of you wants to follow along or give feedback, feel free to.
Yeah, I was looking at. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
No.
Okay, then I was looking. I looked over it another time since we spoke last, Reinhard. And I think it's looking really great. I was wondering what the best way to. I don't know. I was wondering what the best way to pitch in would be. I mean, I had a few thoughts a while ago. One of them you already sorted out on your own. And, one way to do it is I could make a fork of your fork but I didn't want to just disrupt your whole way of doing things since you're working toward this.
Mm.
Do you have any thoughts about how that would work for you, or should we just kind of wait until you get, to a place where you feel really good, and then we go from there? We merge it in and go from there, or?
I mean, I think it would be okay for you if you jump in, or if you have done like suggestions, or maybe it would be easiest to just I guess fork my fork.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were DMing, but I just wanted to, just in case. Yeah.
Create a pull request against my branch, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It just remember to have your you won't get the check in your stuff for the DCO, so just make sure that that's in place when you do sign it, because eventually when it comes all the way back up, it's got to pass the DCO. Any commits?
Yeah, sure. There are probably DCO sign-offs missing in the commit, and I'm not sure how we're gonna handle this, but actually I was gonna like make the history nice anyways before I create a pull request. I thought about like squashing everything. Not sure how we're gonna do this when Scott jumps in now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's where things would get a little different. As long as that's where it would get a little different. I really don't care whether it's got a long history of commits, quite frankly, as long as everything's signed off on, because that's what we have to have for upstream. But otherwise, no, this looks good. It would be a nice 2.0 release for this stuff. And I mean, once it gets into good shape, we can probably merge it over into master over there, and then cut like a 2.0 alpha or something.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have gone through this, but I was in a situation where I was kind of playing around with how to handle updating a bunch of old commits, and it was pretty simple. I just renamed them all, just do like a rename, and I just copied the line in to the old ones, and it was fine. If that's, if that works for you. Or I don't know if you have a better way of handling it, but that's kind of the fallback that I was doing.
For the DCO sign-off, you mean?
Yeah. If there were older commits that you don't want to squash because you want to preserve that history for some reason,
There's a command, and if you actually go look at the DCO bot we use from Probot on somebody who failed with multiple commits, it'll actually tell you how to go back through a bunch of those commits with a single command and add the sign-off.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. That sounds.
The DCO bot actually does that. So if somebody did like 4 commits on a pull request and they failed to sign off, it'll give you like a 2-liner, and one of them's the push on how to sign off on all those commits.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
And I don't remember what it is. I have to go find a commit like that and go see what the command was in order to do it myself when I get in that situation.
Okay, great. When I do, I'll remember that and go and look. Cool. Thanks.
Oh, this looks good, Renard.
I just thought I call it CT for chart testing. CT is kind of cool.
Works for me.
I like it. Oh, by the way, did you take a look? I mean, I don't know if anyone really cares about this at that moment, but one of the other benefits of the one framework that Josh was suggesting is that it had a Gherkin-like, similar to some human readable syntax, and I sent that link to the Godog project, which one of the Cucumber authors co-authored too, but it's essentially Cucumber for Go. I don't know that it's necessary, but if for some reason we want to, I don't know, have something similar to that where there's a human readable command interface, then we could play around with that too at some point.
Yeah, that's something I wanna do, not for the first version, but this is something we should really envision, like write nice reports, or maybe provide, I don't know, even in different formats. Like you could also provide a JUnit format which Jenkins can display out of the box, for example, stuff like this.
Cool. Yeah.
Or whatever format, or a nice HTML report. Don't know.
That's right. There's that Go HTML thing too. Yeah. I guess my only other question is, should we, I should look at the issue before I ask my question. I'm going to hold off. if there's anything else that we want to address in the issue for that. Yeah, I'll just follow up in the issue. Thanks.
Okay. Well, does this get us through our whole agenda for today? Did anybody have anything else we should dig into?
I don't really have much of a status except that I was really pulled away for prepping for last week for a while, and then my week was just completely I had like basically 2 seconds to breathe between on breaks. So, but what I want to do, I just wanted to give a status that what I want to do is follow up with what Adnan and I were working on with that. The tools to help with chart release for the to like make it easier for people to do the hub once we get that totally together. And that's basically it. Just that I don't have much of progress on that, but that I'm planning to jump right back into that.
Great. And I'll give a quick status on the hub. Ed and I have been working on it, but and you got the 1.0 release. The next step is actually to modify the chart so that you can work it with a SAS and not just included MongoDB in the chart, because we're setting up for SAS usage there. In fact, the MongoDB is already created in Azure, which is where we're hosting this. And so we're kind of at that point. Adnan's out this week, and I might jump on it. I'm trying to find some time. Might happen later today or tomorrow morning. And so that's kind of where we're at to create the pull request against Monocular for it. But that's what's up. Oh, the other thing that I'll share that I worked on is we now have, so we've got images up on Quay, right? So we come to Quay. So we can see who's doing what with what. And so here are our images. You're going to see a bunch of them. This is what we run for the DCO webhook labeler, for example. You're not going to see much traffic on it because the only thing that pulls it, I think, is our stuff. But it does have, you can see some activity, and you can see when I moved it over here. If we go back, you'll also see chart testing. And so we can see chart testing and what happened. So we had 29 actions yesterday. Interesting, 45. Some days you're going to see bigger pull downs. People are obviously caching it in their cluster, but it appears we've got more use than just us now, because it's being pulled in from some other places, which is nice. It passed all its security scans. Nice job, Reinhard, with picking a chart setup that actually did this with base images. One of the problems that I actually ran into with the DCO labeler is it was failing on that, and now it's actually running a scratch container, so it doesn't matter. And then this stuff here, these metrics, because it only keeps it for so long, and so you can see it only goes back about a month, and then they start archiving it because their database, they keep details on every request, like who made what requests. It's quite in depth. And so we now have, let me go see if I can find it. Hold on, for the URL here, I was not prepared, but we actually have a long-term archival of the details of this. I'm pulling up a URL now. And these details will eventually be documented. But just a second. Getting the URL here. So one of the things we can actually see is we now have details going back for quite some time, going back further than that. Actually, now it's the 11th, so it's actually what's out of there. And this will actually holds an aggregated response. So if I went and looked at the details of what's in the file from the 11th, I would see that it was when it first went out there and I was testing it and just putting it up here. There was nothing. There was no aggregated stats actually from the 11th. The 12th must be the day it went live. And then from the 12th, I can see we had a couple permission changes, and that was it. I don't even think I'd pushed it that day. But those details are now there for anybody to get to anonymously. We'll publish something, and we'll probably come up with some way to query it. But our data is at least going public on all these images. And if we actually go back here to this, all of the images except Tiller have data backed up for them someplace. It's got to be documented. It's in Azure, but now all of them do. And so we keep a long-term archival of all of the metrics on all of these.
That's so awesome.
We don't have a way to visualize it or do anything yet with it, but at least it's captured and recorded. And we can add it for any new projects pretty easily. And we'll probably need to figure out how to move Tiller over here, because Tiller, just like our chart repositories, is hosted out of Google Cloud. And it turns out a bunch of that stuff's blocked in China. So our Chinese counterparts are having a fairly difficult time dealing with Helm, because they can't get to the stable or incubator repos. So that's one of the things that hopefully the distributed setup and even the mirror that the folks over at SUSE are working on, mirroring app, might make easier. That's all I had. All right. I won't prolong meeting stuff. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to chat about?
Only if not really necessarily chat right now, but only if we want to follow up on some of the credential sharing key-based stuff. I didn't get it. I know that you and Butcher were playing with some of that I think went somewhere, but I never really followed up with where.
Okay, so we're using SOPs. Okay, so for credentials, and we're talking about the shared cluster we use on charts and stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff is all in a repository, and we're using SOPs and Azure Key Vault. And if you have access to the Azure account and you have access to Keybase, you've got directions on how to get set up with it. And then from there, it's, yeah, the directions are in there. In order how to do it, you set some environment variables in your environment, which eventually will go away in a couple of months. And then you can just use Key Vault. And Key Vault encrypts it or decrypts things.
Got it. Okay.
In fact, I'll actually see whether I've got something here. I can share what it looks like. And you can see, do I have it open? I do have it open. Perfect. I'm going to shrink it down in size here just a sec. All right. So I'm going to change my share. All right, let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see it.
All right, perfect. So here is the repository. And there's a README in here, some environment variables, things like that. But if you come into namespaces, which is where you can see the namespaces in the cluster,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go see something like the, we'll go to the DCO labeler. This one here. You see there's an encrypted file, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the values file, and it holds some secrets, and it's encrypted. And if you come in here, you will see that it's not encrypted, or it's encrypted. You can actually see any of the stuff, including
Mm-hmm.
comments. And you can using some make commands, which just go into scripts, you can encrypt, decrypt, shred them all, unseal them all, those kinds of things. And it just ends up using SOPs to do it. And installing SOPs and getting set up for the environment is all in the README. And then it uses Key Vault to do it through Azure. So that way we don't need any PGP keys or anything. Anybody who's got access can just do it.
Nice.
And so the access control is access control through Azure.
Okay. I'll follow up with you separately. I don't want to take other.
Sure. But actually getting installed and set up in here is in the README. And so I would say try and solve that. Yeah. And then if you're running into problems, ask. Because I'm really curious for people to try it and then give feedback on the directions so we can improve them.
Okay. I'll give you, yeah, I'll do that. Thanks.
Sweet.
Nice. I have nothing else. That was it.
Sweet. All right. Well, if that's it, then we can have our time back. So everyone, have a wonderful week. We can go now.
Thank you.
See y'all online.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. See you.